as I love Scientology so much, and as L. Ron Hubbard's bulletins and policies contain an absolute wealth of data, I'm going to do a little bit more reading, simply because it's fascinating. I mean, as a study, wow. Hubbard Communications Office, St Hill Manor, East Grinstead, Sussex, HCO, that's Hubbard Communications Office, bulletin of 10th of September 1983. So it's quite recent. It's written when he was in hiding, but before he died. And this is called PTSness and Disconnection. PTSness is a made-up word. PTS is Scientology's for potential trouble source. It's something that a person can be. Theory, and this is Hubbard talking now. Perhaps the most fundamental right of any being is the right to communicate. Without this freedom, other rights deteriorate. That in itself is fascinating, because Scientologists are not allowed to communicate about Scientology. Scientologists are not allowed to communicate. Anyway, we'll get to that. Communication, however, is a two-way flow. If one has the right to communicate, then one must also have the right to not receive communication from another. It is this latter corollary, I can hardly say that word, corollary, I said it, of the right, no, I've ruined that sentence. If one has the right to communicate, then one must also have the right to not receive communication from another. It is this latter corollary of the right to communicate that gives us our right to privacy. Okay, so you can communicate, and other people can presumably communicate to you, but you can also say, no, I don't want you to talk to me, so please stop. I want to talk to you, but I don't want you to talk to me. Moving on. These rights are so basic that governments have written them into laws. Witness the American Bill of Rights. However, groups have always regulated these rights to one degree or another, for with the freedom to communicate come certain agreements and responsibilities. An example of this is a marriage. In a monogamous society, the agreement is, and I've got a line missing here. I should have checked this before I started reading. Whoever copied these has missed out a line. I can see half the line, but it's so... Actually, I can only see like a third of the line, and it's so difficult. I can't even make out the letters. I can't read it. Okay, I'll just pick it up from where I can. Having second dynamic relations with one spouse and no one else. That's a good one, Ron. As a bigamist. Thus, should wife Shirley establish a 2D type of communication. 2D, by the way, it means second dynamic. It means sex. It means boys and girls. It doesn't in Scientology mean boys and boys, or girls and girls, or animals and people. Or basically, it just means men and women. I'll have to read that one again. Thus, should Shirley, the wife, establish a 2D type of communication line with someone other than her husband, Pete, and it does say Pete, it's a violation of the agreement and postulates of the marriage. Pete has the right to insist that either this communication cease or that the marriage will cease. Shirley, if you don't stop talking to Bill, the marriage is over. That's just a bit extreme. I mean, so is that like saying that no wife can ever talk to anybody, be it animal, vegetable, or mineral? I don't know. It's like, it's kind of an extreme thing. Anyway, here we get to the good bit. Handle or disconnect. In the HCOBs, and that means Hubbard Communications Office bulletins, on PTS tech, and that means potential trouble source technology. In Scientology, the word technology means how to handle something, or it gives you the techniques on how to handle something, even though it often doesn't. In the HCOBs on PTS tech, you'll see the phrase handle or disconnect. It means simply that. And this is Hubbard talking now. Do you remember Tommy Davis saying, no, we don't do disconnection? Well, here's Hubbard 3 years before he dies, telling you it means simply handle or disconnect. And here we go. The term handle most commonly means, when used in relation to PTS tech, to smooth out a situation with another person by applying the tech of communication. The term disconnection is defined as a self-determined decision made by an individual that he is not going to be connected to another. It's a severing of a communication line. Well, put like that, it doesn't sound so bad. But what it actually is an absolute destruction of a personal relation. Let's say, for example, it's my mum. Okay, so I no longer speak to my mum, send her cards, nothing. So it's not just a communication line, it's a lot of other things as well. Don't try and make it sound nicer than it is, Ron, because it's actually horrible. It's also not a self-determined decision, because Scientology ethics officers and OSA and other people with a bit of power actually try to persuade people to cut people out of their lives entirely and completely. It's not just a communication line. Oh, your mum's on the phone. I'm busy. Who's on the phone? Yeah, I'm busy. It's not just a communication line. It's everything. You cut the person entirely, utterly, and completely out of your life. That is what disconnection means, and that is disconnection as applied by the Church of Scientology right up until now, and still is being applied. Okay, let's have a bit more Ron. The basic principle of handle or disconnect exists in any group, and ours is no different. Okay, let me just take Boy Scouts. Do they handle or disconnect? No. Some religious groups do, but generally speaking, no. He's just trying to make it seem more normal and make it seem okay to do this. It is much like trying to deal with a criminal. Make them criminals. That's the way to do it. This is what's happening here. It's like, it's position. It's called positioning. You say something like, L. Ron Hubbard is nothing like Hitler. I've already used the words L. Ron Hubbard and Hitler in the same sentence, so you see what's going on here. It's much like trying to deal with a criminal, or a drug addict, or a homosexual. If he will not handle, the society resorts to the only other solution. It disconnects the criminal from the society. In other words, they remove the guy from society and put him in a prison because he won't handle his problem or otherwise cease to commit criminal acts against others. Maybe he can't handle his problem. Maybe his problem is, let's say, drug addiction. Maybe he went to Narconon to have his drug addiction problem solved and it got made worse. Maybe the friends he made in Narconon died or killed themselves or continued to use drugs. Maybe. Maybe he did go to jail. Maybe he did the Criminon program and... You see where I'm going. Okay. It's the same sort of situation that husband Pete is faced with in the example mentioned above. The optimum solution is to handle the situation with wife Shirley and her violations of their group agreements, marriage. But if Pete cannot handle the situation, he's left with no other choice but to disconnect, sever the marriage communication lines, if only by separation. So he's left with no other choice. He has lots of choices. He's got hundreds of choices. He doesn't have to walk out of the marriage just because she won't stop talking to Bill, if that's the problem. Now, if she had eyes for Bill, that's a whole different thing. But you still don't walk out. Why the hell has she got eyes for Bill? Maybe Pete isn't satisfying her in the bedroom area, for example. And that's why she's making eyes at Bill. There's a million reasons. It can't be this as simple as Ron would have us believe. But anyway, to do otherwise would be disastrous, for he is connected to someone antagonistic to the original agreements, postulates, and responsibilities of the group, in brackets, the marriage. No. Okay, maybe she is being antagonistic to the original agreements, but maybe he's not fulfilling some of those agreements. If he is, then fine. If she really is a loose woman, which seems to be what he's trying to say here, oh, well, you see, that Shirley, well, she was never right for him, Okay. A Scientologist can become PTS by reason of being connected to someone that's antagonistic to Scientology or its tenets. Really? So you could be PTS to the entire world outside of Scientology? That's 7 billion. You're PTS to everybody else on this planet except Scientologists. That's what he's saying, and that's crazy, guys. In order to resolve the PTS condition, he either handles the other person's antagonism, as covered in the materials on PTS handling, or, as a last resort, when all attempts to handle have failed, he disconnects from the person. He is simply exercising his right to communicate or not to communicate with a particular person. Oh, no, he's not. It goes deeper than that. Mum's going, I'm not too sure about this Scientology. She must be a suppressive person. That makes me PTS. Oh my God, I won't get any gains from Scientology. Mum, you've got to stop saying these things about Scientology. Why? Why the hell should I? Well, because we're good. We're like way to happiness. We're trying to, Criminon, Narcanon. We're trying to help. And if you're against us trying to help, then you're against us trying to help. What are you talking about? That's Scientology. I warned you about getting involved with those people, and I need to disconnect from Mum. She's obviously an SP. There's only Scientologists understand me. My mum doesn't understand me. What the hell? She's only my mum, huh? I'll save money on birthday cards and Christmas cards and presents and crap. Sure. It's just made up, but, so is Scientology. With our tech of handle or disconnect, we are, in actual fact, doing nothing different than any society or group or marriage down through thousands of years. Oh, really? I don't agree, and you're wrong, and I can prove it. So another paragraph here, and the last line slightly missing. So again, I don't know who the hell copied this. Earlier disconnection as a condition was cancelled. Earlier disconnection as a condition was cancelled. That's like saying it's no longer cancelled. It had been abused by a few individuals who'd failed to handle situations which could have been handled and who lazily or criminally disconnected. How do you criminally disconnect? Thereby creating situations even worse than blah, 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 blah. Secondly, there were those who could only survive only by living on our lines. They wanted to continue to be connected to Scientologists. See the HCOBs on the characteristics of an SP. Thus they screamed to high heaven if anyone dared to apply the tech of handle or disconnect. There's always bad guys in Scientology, see there. This puts Scientologists at a disadvantage. Oh, really? Really? Because I thought you were increasing people's competence. But anyway, we cannot afford to deny Scientologists that basic freedom that is granted to everyone else. The right to choose whom one wishes to communicate with or not communicate with. This is probably why Scientologists completely ignore me when I offer to take them for coffee and I offer to give them information. This is probably it. They're probably choosing not to communicate with me. It's bad enough that there are governments trying, through the use of force, to prevent people from disconnecting from them. Witness those who want to leave Russia but can't. Oh, really, Ron? Okay. The bare fact is that disconnection is a vital tool in handling PTSness and can be very effective when used correctly. Therefore, the tech of disconnection is hereby restored to use in the hands of those persons thoroughly and standardly trained in PTSSP tech. Great. Well, at least we're all safe now. In the great majority of cases where a person has some family member or close associate who appears antagonistic to his getting better through Scientology, it's not really a matter of the antagonistic source wanting the PTS to not get better. It's most commonly a lack of correct information about Scientology that causes the problem or upset. Oh, no. You see, I'm getting better through Scientology and you're just criticizing me. Well, you don't look better to me. You don't look like you're eating, and your clothes look like they need a wash, and you smell. Spiritually, I'm getting better. You still don't seem that better off to me. In fact, in many, many ways, you seem worse off. You're an SP. Leave me alone. In such a case, simply having the PTS disconnect would not help matters and would actually be a non-confront of the situation. It's quite common that the PTS has a low confront on the terminal and situation. This isn't hard to understand when one looks at these facts. A. To be PTS in the first place, the PTS must have committed overts against the antagonistic source. Overts. Sins of omission or commission carried out by oneself or others. So you're a potential trouble source because you're connected to a PTS, because you're connected to a suppressive person. But the only reason they're able to influence you is because you've done something to that person. Maybe it was that you disconnected from them, huh? B. When one has committed overts, his confront and responsibility drop. Oh, really? Is that why you had none, Ron? Is that why you had no confront on the subject of paying bills? I never had a second wife. No, I don't have a Swiss bank account. I do have a bank account in Switzerland. And so on and so forth. When an ethics officer, and that's a person who's in a Scientology organization to sort you out when you get into a mess, finds that a Scientologist is PTS to a family member, he does not recommend that the person disconnect from the antagonistic source. The ethics officer's advice to the Scientologist is to handle. This actually happened to someone I know. They had to handle their mother, and basically the Scientologist told them that their mother was a suppressive person, and this person went, no, she's not. She's my mum. Which would be the normal way of going about things. The handling for such a situation is to educate him in the tech of PTSness and suppression, and then skillfully and firmly guide the PTS through the steps needed to restore good communication with the antagonistic source. Hi, Mum. You still doing that Scientology? I can't confront her because I stole a $5 from her purse when I was 3. I bit her nipple when she was breastfeeding me when I was 1. I better go to the ethics officer for some advice. This eventually dissolves the situation by bringing about an understanding on the part of the antagonistic source as to what Scientology is and why the PTS person is interested in and involved in it. I know what's going on here. They only want your money. Of course, when this is accomplished, you no longer have a PTS at all, and you may very well find a new Scientologist on your hands. Do you know something? I think I'll give this Scientology a try. Geez, why don't I? Huh? An ethics officer can encounter a situation where someone is factually connected to a suppressive person in present time. This is a person whose normal operating basis is one of making others smaller, less able, less powerful. He does not want anyone to get better at all. Now, rather bizarrely, that's exactly what happens to you when you're in Scientology. You become less than you were before Scientology. You do actually become less able, less powerful. You don't get any better at all, but you think you are. It's brilliant. In truth, an SP is absolutely, completely terrified of anyone becoming more powerful. Really? I don't think so. In such an instance, the PTS isn't going to get anywhere trying to handle the person. The answer is to sever the connection. Okay, this is going on far too long. Let me just have a look. Okay, nearly done. How to disconnect. How a disconnection is done depends on the circumstances. Duh. Example, the PC lives next door to, say, a psychiatric clinic. Yeah, like everyone does. And feels PTS due to this environment. I've lost all my gains in Scientology because the psychiatric clinic next door keeps having people going in and going out. What am I going to do? The remedy is simple. The PC can move to another apartment in another location. If that psychiatric clinic next door doesn't move, I'm going to move. He need not write any sort of disconnection letter to the psychiatric clinic. He simply changes his environment, which is in effect a disconnection from the suppressive environment. Getting an inkling into how brainwashed these idiots are? Sorry, I don't mean idiots in that way. I mean poor suppressed beings, actually, but hey. Another example. A PC is connected to a person or group that's been declared suppressive by HCO. Covered that earlier, remember? In a published ethics order. So it's like, ooh, ethics order. He should disconnect, and if he wants to inform the SP of the fact, he may write a letter of disconnection. I am hereby disconnected from you on Facebook and Twitter. Such a letter would be very straightforward. It would state the fact of the disconnection and the reason for it. I'm disconnected from you because you're an SP. It would not be misemotional. In Scientology, a misemotion is anything that isn't conservative. It's anger, it's fear, it's crying. It's what they call human emotion and reaction. Oh no, you can't have any of that. Or accusative, since this would only serve to stir up further antagonism. I'm disconnecting from you. I'm disconnecting from you. Oh yes, I am. Great. The letter would be inspected by the ethics officer before it was sent, and copies kept for the PTS person's own ethics file and PC folder. A lot of paper in Scientology. Oh yeah. No attempt will be made to establish communication with the declared SP to clear matters up or to seek to reform the SP. The SP's reform is strictly in the hands of HCO. The PTS simply disconnects. So from that moment on, the person that's got nothing to do with Scientology is totally in the hands of Scientology. How's that going to work? Oh, God. Another example. One discovers that an employee at his place of business is an SP. He steals money, drives away customers, wipes out other employees, and will not correct no matter what you do. Does that sound familiar to any Scientologists? It should do. The handle's very simply, the PTS fires him, and that's the end of it right there. What if it's your boss? What if it's your senior in the organization? What if it's Scientology that's stealing money, driving away customers, making people leave? To fail or refuse to disconnect from a suppressive person not only denies the PTS case gain, it's also supportive of the suppressive, in itself a suppressive act, and so it must be labelled. And there's a whole thing about suppressive acts and about suppressive rundown. So, nearly finished. Just a short summary. The technology of disconnection is essential in the handling of PTSs. It can and has saved lives and untold trouble and upset. It must be preserved and used correctly. Nothing in this HCLB shall ever, or under any circumstances, justify any violations of the laws of the land. Oh, really? And such offence shall subject the offender to penalties described by law, as well as to ethics and justice actions. L. Ron Hubbard, founder. Whew. Wow. Wow. I feel like I've been looking into like a mind that's full of writhing snakes and then like, you know, what's wrong with a hi, let's get a coffee and talk about this. You can't do that. You're not allowed to talk to the supposedly suppressive person. When my brother was in Scientology, he came up to me one time and said, I think our mother's a suppressive person. And I just went, really? You know? But it gets in your head when you're a Scientologist. And I remember when another guy's actually still in, and this was about more than 20 years ago. He came to me and he said, you know how the birthday game, you're supposed to expand 5.4 times in size every year? And I went, yes. Well, I've been coming here now for 8 years, and it's actually, there's less people here than there were then. And I went, yeah, there must be an SP somewhere doing this. And that's all I can think of saying. It neatly pigeonholes problems like that so that you don't actually confront what's really going on. I think if anyone really looked at the whole Scientology situation, you'd have to say that David Miscavige fits the definition of a suppressive person, and so did L. Ron Hubbard. And I think on that note, I'll say good night. So good night. Whether ye be PTS or SP or even a Scientologist, good night and sleep tight.